Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Victory Green Hour. And this one just feels a little more special because this Victory Green Hour is the one that has taken the 2024-2025 Philadelphia Eagles to the Super Bowl in New Orleans, happening on February 9th, the birth dates of both Saquon Barkley and Cooper DeJean. Call it destiny, maybe? We'll see. But I am your host tonight, Connor, and joining me, as always, is LJ. LJ is trying to rest his golden voice by not taking the hosting duties tonight and hopefully saving himself a couple hundred words. But before we get going on this reaction episode, make sure to follow me on Twitter at Connor10. Follow LJ Harrell at LJ Harrell54. Follow our Kelly Green Hour podcast Twitter at Kelly Green Hour, and the entire Eagles Pin Poll network at Eagles Pin Poll. And of course, type in Eagles Pin Poll and you can pretty much find us anywhere, whether you listen to podcasts, whether it's on YouTube and you prefer the streaming method, whether it's on Facebook. Go and type Eagles Pin Poll in, hit follow, hit subscribe, hit like, do your thing. And now on to what is important. The Philadelphia Eagles, the Washington Commanders apparently took over Philadelphia, came in and got absolutely crushed.
At a restaurant that nobody in Philadelphia goes to, by the way.
Yeah, I did see the jokes. I didn't get the jokes because I'm not from Philadelphia, but I kind of got the idea that it is a very meaningless restaurant to take over. So, but the Philadelphia Eagles came out, scored 7 rushing touchdowns. I believe it tied a playoff record for touchdowns in a game, 55-23. It was Saquon Barkley with 3, Jalen Hurts with 3, and Will freaking Shipley with 1, and a very impressive special teams game and overall game for having 4 carries. LJ, I will let you kind of start this off. What is your initial reaction beyond the most obvious of all? We're going to the damn Super Bowl.
Well, I didn't expect us to put 55 points on the board. That was definitely unexpected. I'm not mad at it, obviously. Starting with the first drive, I was shocked that Dan Quinn decided to settle for a field goal after 18 plays. He had gone for it on 2 previous 4th downs, and it was only like 4th and 3, I think. So I'm shocked that he settled for a field goal there. And when he settled for that field goal, I kind of had an idea. I was like, all right, if the Eagles can score, they're going to win this game. And then hold and behold, I was like, all right, let's give the defense a breather. And then Saquon goes 60 yards on the first play, and I'm like, oh, this is the type of game it's going to be. Look, Jaden Daniels is a star. He's good. But he's also, he's also a rookie. And all 4 teams that entered Championship Sunday had not turned the ball over in the postseason. And the Eagles forced 3 turnovers. They have been outstanding so far this postseason with forcing their opponents to turn the football over. And that's going to be the key. I mean, I'll say it again. Like, I deserve I deserve to give Vic Fangio a huge apology because at the beginning of the year when they were 2-2, I said that the game had passed them by, and I was wrong. And again, I'm happy that the Miami Dolphins have a bunch of soft players and play for him. He has turned this and Howie Roseman deserves a lot of credit because this defense is young. Besides Brandon Graham and Darius Slay, everybody's 28 and younger.
It's the youngest defense in the league with Darius Slay and Brandon Graham on it.
And you think about it, if Brandon Graham retires and if Slay doesn't come back, you have to think that they're going to draft an edge. So that's going to be another 22, 23-year-old guy. Potentially bring Isaiah Rodgers back. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm just that opening drive kind of set things in motion for the Commanders, because why wouldn't you go for it on 4th and 3?
Agreed.
Like, you go for it on 4th and 3. You had already made 2 4th downs. You score a touchdown there. Maybe that changes the complexion of the game for the Commanders. But fortunately for the Eagles, you kick the field goal, it's only 3-0, and they score a touchdown. Touchdowns over field goals. 7 over 3 is always going to win games, because then the Eagles went up 14-3, and the Commanders got the ball and kicked another field goal. Like, the Eagles are going to keep scoring touchdowns. If you keep kicking field goals, you're not going to win the game. So the Eagles deserve a ton of credit on the defensive side of the football for getting the ball back. Special teams, Will Shipley getting the ball back. And then offensively, just running their offense. And I've said it time and time again. Doesn't matter how Jalen does it. It's going to look different every game. He has said it. This time he threw for what, 246 yards or whatever it was?
246.
Everybody's sitting there. Jalen can't, Jalen can't win you a Super Bowl, or Jalen can't get you to a Super Bowl with the way he's playing. Well, guess what? For the second time in 3 years, he's going to a Super Bowl. The only quarterback in Eagles history to go to the Super Bowl twice. Nick Sirianni, the only head coach in Eagles history to go to the Super Bowl twice. Put some respect on their name.
San Diego 2019, you guys need to say more hype. Sounds like a funeral here. We're in the Super Bowl. I was hyped up. We don't want LJ to get too hyped up, because then it leaves there a lot of coffins. So we're trying to give him a break here. But offensively, yeah, I mean, we'll all start on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Jalen Hurts threw the ball, made the big plays when he had to make the big plays. Saquon Barkley was Saquon Barkley. I mean, I saw there was somebody who posted a video of a guy who was actually complaining that they didn't give Saquon Barkley enough touches and that Sirianni was an idiot for not doing it. Blew my mind.
55 points. I get it. He averaged over 7 yards a carry, 15 carries, 118 yards. But first, people complain because they give him the ball too much. Now people complain because they don't give him the ball enough. Like, make up your freaking minds, people.
There's people are never going to make up their minds because they have to have something negative to say about the Eagles. They have to find a way to keep them at the forefront of attention. And
if that's the case, this is going to be a long 2 weeks till the Super Bowl, because yesterday's game was the best performance the Eagles had this entire season. It was damn near flawless. There were a couple of penalties. They didn't turn the ball over. Jalen had one of his better passing games of the year, not talking yardage wise, but he looked decisive in his throws. The 4th and 5 to A.J. Brown reminded me of the New York Giants game down that left sideline. It was a perfect
beautiful throw
over Lattimore. The touchdown pass was the touchdown pass to AJ was a really, really good throw. Like
the sideline throw to Devontae that people thought was out.
I thought his foot was in.
I thought it was in too. Like there's people, you can take the angle. When you take the angle that looks on to it, it definitely does look like he's out. But if you look at it from other angles, he's definitely in. And when that play was made, I said it, whatever you called, even if it was reviewed or challenged, you were going to end up having to stick with the play, with the decision that you made. This was not the Xavier Worthy throw of last night, which I think should have been overturned. But otherwise, like that,
go against the Chiefs and the refs. We'll go talk about that next week. But yeah, that's not going to be fun.
But the Devontae Smith catch, I think, was in. But like you're right, he was decisive in his throws. It looked like the Pittsburgh Steelers game. Like, it felt like he should have come out in the presser and said, hey, is that what y'all wanted to see again? Because that was just the type of performance that Jalen Hurts put together. And, of course, on the ground, he was 10 for 16. Of course, I think there was about 5 or 6 of those were the tush push.
By the way, you might talk about it in a little bit, but that was it. What quarter was it? The fourth quarter?
With Luvu?
The tush push where there was like 5 offsides penalties in a row. And I had never heard of that rule. It hasn't happened in the NFL, but it happened in college where a team was awarded a touchdown because a player off the bench tackled somebody, like ran on the field and tackled somebody in college. But yeah, I've never heard of that rule. But yeah, like Luvu was obviously doing that on purpose. And then Jonathan Allen was doing it on purpose. But yeah, I mean, it's a legit rule.
It is.
So,
it is.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah, I know. Everybody was sharing the rule, and afterwards I was like, I mean, it makes sense because I don't think that they were going to let them run the tush push without somebody intervening and saying, okay, this is enough. We got to run this play because we're just delaying this game. We can't move you half an inch closer and closer and closer. We might as well just put him in the end zone.
So also, Brett Eclipse says that 3-play penalty sequence was the funniest thing I've ever seen. It was, but I was also worried because by the way, Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens both deserve a hell of a lot of accolades for what they did in that game. But I was worried because Jurgens getting down into that with a bad back for however long they were down in that stance, as low as they were, can't be good for that. Also, the way Luvu was diving over, I thought he was trying to go for Jalen's knee, to try to hurt him, because obviously Luvu's a dirty player. But that was the one thing that worried me. So I'm glad that because on the second one, Jalen saw it and backed up, so he didn't. Because the first one he got a little hit, but it wasn't hard. And then the second one he backed up. So Luvu, I think, was definitely doing it on purpose, trying to. He says he was trying to time it, but that was a bunch of BS.
Yeah, I mean, you could have said for the first couple of his time, and the third or the fourth time, you just had to lay off, and when the snap went, hope that you made something happen, because it was just getting foolish at that point. But I agree, it kind of looked like, because he was not, like, he was going full over the pile right towards Jalen Hurts. So I mean, and a ton of credit to Jalen Hurts. I think there was early in the game, he ran on two or three times, and he actually ducked down and took the slide, which I give him a ton of credit for, because that's not usually the Jalen Hurts that we see. But it was smart of him, because we were talking about in the last episode, live to fight another play, live to fight another
He actually
game.
has been sliding a lot earlier this year. The one thing that I did, he in pre-games he had the brace on. Before they took the field, he took the brace off. And a lot of the guys were saying that in practice weeks this week he looked more mobile than he had in previous weeks, and he did have the 11-yard touchdown run. And that's the one thing that he had to do to be able to keep the Washington defense honest, so that it would open up lanes for Saquon Barkley. And obviously, now the first play of the game, it was a toss out, but like it's still, even though Jalen was under center, you never know. Maybe he could have faked it and took it out. But that was one of this year, the first runs of Saquon where he actually had to break tackles, like on a long touchdown run, because a lot of his long touchdown runs, he barely got touched this year. That one, he had to do a couple of spin moves, get out of the tackle by Jeremy Chin. And
that
then
tackling was atrocious by the Commanders all night.
It was.
And a lot of people, like a lot of media, saying that it was self-induced and Jaden Daniels was being forced to play against self-induced errors. I mean, like you said 3 turnovers, there was 4, but one of them was Jaden Daniels' interception. But 3 fumbles, and the 3 fumbles were really, really not good. The Eckler one was bad. The McNichols one was untimely. The De'Ami Brown one was untimely. And each of those happened. I think the Eckler one happened when they were down by 11, and the McNichols and De'Ami Brown ones both happened when they were down by 7 points. So they were fully in the game when all 3 of those fumbles and lost fumbles happened. And those, if any of those turn into them continuing their offensive possession, we could be talking about such a different type of game. And probably not that we put 55 on them, but they were just so untimely. And you have to give Jane Daniels like you were kind of saying earlier, you have to give Jane Daniels a ton of respect, but you have to remember he is a rookie. From a pure offensive standpoint, your top weapons being Terry McLaurin and Zach Ertz doesn't exactly put fear into many people, but
I get it that he's a rookie. But coming into this game, there were a lot of people talking about how he's the best quarterback in the NFC. This is the hottest team in the NFC. Well, if you're going to say that, you can't change it up after they get blown out. Because there was a lot of talk of, the Eagles only beat a rookie quarterback in the NFC Championship game. Well, before that, you were saying he was the best quarterback in the NFC. So make up your mind. You can't have it both ways. And I'm not saying that loss was fully on Jaden Daniels. The defense obviously didn't help them, and the turnovers. But still, like, if you're going to talk like that on Jaden, where's the respect for Jalen? And that's the thing that bothers me.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Jalen is still not there. People are saying a bit more nice things about Jalen Hurts today, but there's still, they say the nice thing, and then there's asterisk, a but, a question mark, even though he is running stride for stride over the last 5 or 6 years with guys like Patrick Mahomes. They want to talk about guys like Lamar Jackson, hasn't gotten that big win. They want to talk about guys like Josh Allen, hasn't been able to get that big win. Jalen Hurts on the other side, and I get it, for those two guys, you got to go through Patrick Mahomes, you got to go through, but to be the best, you got to beat the best. You got to have that mentality. There's no excuse. If you can't, you know that it's constantly, every single year, going to go through Patrick Mahomes. And Josh Allen, he beats Patrick Mahomes in season all the time. His record against Patrick Mahomes in the regular season is like 3-1 or 4-0 or something. And then in the playoffs, he's now 0-4. Like you can beat the best when it doesn't matter, but when it does matter, you can't bring it and beat the best. I get it. You're also playing against the refs. There's a bunch of other things. There's some things that definitely went wrong. That was a first down for Josh Allen last night. That was a brutal drop by Kincaid. Harder catch than a lot of people give it to be, but still a tough drop to take. There was you hate to see it for Josh Allen, but at the same time, back to the Philadelphia Eagles, maybe.
Yeah, but
I guess it all comes back around to Jalen Hurts does not get the respect he deserves, because what's the one thing that we have been repeating all through, like he was, I think for the 2 weeks he was off, we talked about it. And then throughout every week of the playoffs that we've come on and talked, what happened to winning matters. This guy is one of the most winningest quarterbacks right now from a win percentage.
Patrick Mahomes is the only quarterback over the last 3 or 4 years that has more wins than Jalen Hurts.
Exactly. So you're sitting there, and this is one of the most winningest quarterbacks from purely a percentage standpoint. And there's always a critique just because of his play style, just because of how he might carry himself, just because of some of the drama that happens sometimes around this team and in the locker room. It's wild. It's crazy to think that there's constantly got to be an asterisk on Jalen Hurts and such few things. There was in the national media today, because I flicked it on for a little bit, they were mentioning the winning and that he wins a lot. And that's the first time they've really delved into that avenue much this year when talking about Jalen Hurts. But Red Eclipse says best victory Monday in a while, all caps while. Yes, Ewing 609. Hey, welcome aboard. Coach Lombard says go Birds, of course. San Diego 2019 national media acted like Washington just dropped the ball. The Eagles took the ball from them on those fumbles.
I think the McNichols fumble was probably, I think it was the McNichols fumble was probably the biggest, because the Eagles had just scored. And there was less than 2 minutes. There was like 1:40 to go. They could have went down and scored, and then the Eagles got the ball back at the half. But they fumbled, so the Eagles were able to score again and get the ball back after half. Now, the Eagles went 3 and out. But it was key that Eagles defense forced Washington to go 3 and out. So, that was a big stretch, because it went from what was the score? 20-12 or 14-12, whatever it was, to 20.
Yeah, it was 20-12, and it turned into 27-12 off the turnover.
Exactly. So it went from a 1-score game to a 2-score game, and it could have potentially been a tie game at the half if Washington was able to go down, score, could get a 2-point conversion. So that was, I think, the biggest fumble of the game. And Will Shipley, again, on special teams. Will Shipley caused the fumble. Kenny Gainwell recovered the fumble. 2 backup running backs. One of them, Gainwell, until his concussion, a vital part of the offense to give Saquon a breather every once in a while. And they're out there on special teams. So, again, doing what is needed to help this team win, and they deserve credit on that. Some starters are out there on special teams. Chip Kelly did that, and I know everybody hates Chip Kelly, but when Chip Kelly was the coach, Malcolm Jenkins would be on special teams. You would have some starters out there, and that would play. And Malcolm Jenkins played like 100% of defensive snaps too. So, you have to have some starters out there, some guys that are going to – and it's different because you're not running 70 yards because everybody lines up at the 40-yard line. So that makes things a little different. But, just having the right personnel out there is key. Remember, Sirianni's first year, we thought Michael Clay was going to get fired. And he's turned into a really good special teams coordinator now. You got to figure out what's up with Jake on these long field goals. But, and hopefully we don't have an issue what happened 2 years ago with that short punt by Siposs that allowed Kadarius Toney to return it inside 20, and the Chiefs were able to score and kind of change the complexion of the game in Super Bowl 57. But excuse me, we'll see what happens special teams wise. Obviously, we'll talk to Eagles Chiefs next week, but that stuff like that's going through my mind now is where do the Eagles have the advantages? Is special teams potentially advantage? Defense, is that an advantage? We know that the Chiefs have the advantage at the quarterback position, but other positions, the receivers, the Eagles have the advantage. Tight end, the Chiefs have the advantage, even though Goddard's really good in the playoffs. Running back, the Eagles have the advantage. Offensive line,
I would say the Eagles. I would say,
but it's a lot closer than people think. And head coach,
yeah, for sure.
Head coaching, Chiefs have the advantage. So, it's going to be a fun discussion to have next week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It will be a fun discussion to have, and cannot wait to have it next week. Another thing that impressed me about the Philadelphia Eagles, 7 for 7 in the red zone. Like, that might have been the first game this year where we were 100%. I think it was the first game this year we were 100% when going into the red zone. Sometimes one of our biggest issues was we weren't able to cash in on get into the red zone, or we couldn't get to the end zone was sometimes the issue with the offense throughout this season. So the fact that you get there 7 times, and I mean, it helps that you get, the tush push. It helps you get some of the Saquon Barkley runs there. I get it. Some of them seemed easy, but 7 for 7. There are not many teams getting into that red zone 7 times and putting up points 7 times. It's crazy. And that first drive, like, by the Washington Commanders, when they went like for the full, like, I think, what was it, like an 8-minute drive, like 7 minutes and 3 seconds. Like, it just felt like it was just a sign for the game. And then, like you said, when they settled for the field goal and then they came out and bam, first play, 60-yard touchdown, it completely shifted the complexion. Like you said, if this was a 7-7 game, we could have been talking it might have been such a swing in the game and such a different strategy that both teams might have taken, or the approach that both teams might have been taken from there. Will Shipley, I mean, that's huge. I mean, Will Shipley, stepped up in a big spot with the Kenneth Gainwell concussion. You don't want to see concussions and things like that happen. But, I mean, I don't think the Eagles need to bring back Kenneth Gainwell. I didn't think they needed to in the first place. I think this type of situation kind of solidifies it, because Will Shipley is the better special teams player. And I think if given more runs with the ones, can be the better backup running back as well. So I would love to see
the 57-yard run he had. Washington gave up at that point. Like,
absolutely.
The Eagles couldn't really kneel it. Brett Eclipse says, I know this is a petty thing to complain about, but is anyone slightly concerned about Will Shipley when he failed to take the run to the house? Happy for him, but concerning that he looked at gas. I'm not worried. He probably hasn't run that far since he was at Clemson. So I'm not really worried about that. And he doesn't have that type of breakaway speed. I don't think. He's not Saquon. Obviously, not many people are. But I mean, I'm just happy to see him out there. I wanted to see him get some carries because, again, I'm not the biggest Gainwell fan. So seeing him have a chance to get those carries. Also, by the way, do you know what Gainwell's over-under was on yards yesterday?
Oh, he probably beat it.
It was 8.5. Gainwell finished with 8 yards rushing before he got hurt. There were a lot of people that took the over, and then he got hurt.
That's a shame. It's funny how those things work.
Right.
And then Brett Eclipse is not that he was drafted to be a starting running back, of course. But yeah, well, we agree. But I mean, I think there's an opportunity there with him, and hopefully we get to see a bit more. And San Diego 2019 says that was a knock on Shipley coming out of Clemson. He wasn't that fast. Yeah, so it makes sense. Defensively, I mean, 30 total pressures on 80 defensive snaps. That's crazy. Like, it always felt like we were getting after Jane Daniels. It felt like we were getting in that backfield a lot, not necessarily allowing him to be overly comfortable, take his time and go through his reads. You look at guys like, Milton Williams had a great game. Jordan Davis had 1 sack, definitely could have had 2. I think there was a point soon after that one play where he was in the backfield again and the ball got out just in time.
Speaking of the defense, Tony G had mentioned it at the beginning. I didn't see Jalen Carter's pimp slap the center during the game. I guess the refs didn't see it either. Do you know when in the game that happened? I'm pretty sure it was the second half because that's when Biotis went out of the game.
Yeah, I think it was like the third quarter when it happened.
That
was hilarious. So
it was. I mean, they didn't. I saw a video on Twitter earlier today. I died laughing. I was like, "Yo, the fact that he got hurt on that." I mean, that sounds like that seems like a soft player because it didn't seem like it was that crazy of a.
And I mean, I think that, and the crazy thing is, like, the Commanders fans were going wild about, like, how are you not going to call this? They got away with it. As soon as the snap goes off, Biotis has his hand in the face mask of Jalen Carter. So, like, at the end should Jalen Carter have stepped back and just completely slapped the crap out of him? Absolutely. Probably not. Like, that was a similar Jalen Carter thing that he did. I think he did against the Commanders during that game that CJGJ got tossed. He did the exact same thing. Like, you don't want to get caught doing that, but there would have been missed calls on both sides of it. And the Commanders fans need to be realistic here. It's not like they don't hold Jalen Carter on almost every second defensive play. Let's be serious.
On the 4th and 5 play, there are people saying that Dickerson held somebody that was rushing through, and it should have been a penalty. When Lattimore was called for an unnecessary roughness after a tush-push touchdown, and Lattimore's helmet ended off, probably because of A.J. Brown, and the penalty was on Lattimore. I kept saying, well, do you remember the game 5 weeks ago when CJGJ's helmet got hit off, and he's the one that got called for the penalty? Like,
yep.
Refs aren't perfect, and I hate refs. They do suck. Like, they haven't been good this year, but whatever. You got kind of got to live with it at this point.
I think it's a sign, like, at least the head referee, the one who's going to make the final ruling. How can the NFL not pay to have, like, what do you have to have, max 20 of them? 20 of the head referees just be full-time employees of the NFL that can just focus on the game, focus on making the right calls, learning from their mistakes. Most of these guys go back and have a damn day job. Like, you do not, I can't remember who put it up there. This is a $22 billion a year profit company, the NFL. And you're telling me you can't pay 20 guys $100,000 a year, because I guarantee you most of them would leave their current jobs for $100,000 a year. You're telling me you can't pay 20 guys $100,000 a year to be the head referees, and they lead these groups of, the rest can be part-timers. You lead these guys, and, like, to me, it just doesn't make sense. And then, of course, there was also the idea of how are we still in the day and age where we're dealing with chains and guys standing 20 yards back making a decision? This doesn't stem from the Eagles game. It stems from the Josh Allen instance. But how do we not have and we know the technology exists because I think the UFL or XFL uses it, where they don't have a chain gang.
Not to jump out. On average, NFL officials earn $205,000 during the regular season.
Okay, well, even better than pay them $250,000. 20 of them at $250,000. You're still not eating into it all that much.
The league's top officials earn $250,000.
Well, there you go.
Allen and Craig Rolstad.
Well, then maybe it has to be even more than that. But the point is, you have to make them full-time employees. I think the issue that comes from that is, like, are you going to give them benefits? Like, they don't even give the players benefits and stuff. So, like, I think the issue would be you got to roll all that into it. But there are definitely some things that I think the NFL needs to look at. Like, it doesn't need to continue to be this antiquated way of playing football. Like, you see, in baseball, they're starting to look at the robot umps and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
the UFL does they have the trackers in the footballs, and if they have to do a measurement, they don't bring out chain gangs. They actually have it to where, and they put it up on the scoreboard to show where it's at. So that would,
exactly.
There's already a tracker in the football. Why don't they use it?
Well, exactly. Like, that to me, it's crazy. Get a little off topic, but yeah, they need
Desert Fox. They apparently are going to do that next year. They're going to
no, they're only reviewing the quarterback slide thing, which which Patrick Mahomes doesn't take advantage of as much as towing the line towards getting out of bounds. Some of these other BS penalties that he gets away with, like they need to almost like it's a tough line to toe, because if you get into the whole roughing the passer and thing, like you can call those are ticky tacky. You could be reviewing almost every 4 or 5 plays. So you have to be careful in how you do it. So I get why they're treading lightly, because you'd be reviewing almost every single time a quarterback gets hit. But you have to trust that the refs can make a fair call as well.
Coaches get 2 challenges now, and if they win both of them, they get a third or something like that. Maybe they give every team 3, and you can challenge whatever you want.
I think you should be able to challenge whatever you want. I think it's getting to a point like that just needs to be a rule, honestly. Like it to me, it just doesn't make any sense that they can't challenge everything. I mean, maybe there's something like don't challenge holding. There's holding on every damn play in football. But like for the most part, the things that should be challengeable. Like roughing the passer definitely needs to be something that can be challenged, because that Mahomes one that happened a couple weeks ago, where he slid under the 2 guys and the 2 guys hit over top of him and they called the penalty. That could have been, the coach could have thrown the challenge flag and they would have got the 15 yards back. Like it's crazy. Like I do think that roughing the passer needs to be challenged, because it is so fast. Like some of those really, really fast things, just like, pass interference and just like those types of challenges that happen, they happen just so quickly that sometimes you need the extra set of eyes and you need the extra minute to review. And that's just how it is.
Yeah, and hopefully they figure it out. I mean, it's not as much of a bajillionaire conglomerate the NFL is. You would think that they would have it as close to perfect as possible, but nothing's ever going to be perfect.
Otherwise, defensively, like everyone had a really good game. Oren Burks has been phenomenal stepping up for these 2 games. I was one who really wanted to see Jeremiah Trotter Jr. out there playing, which it's 20 years to the year that his father went to the Super Bowl with the Eagles.
Yeah, and he was on the field.
Cool.
He was on the field with them as Trot Senior was carrying them around. So it is crazy. That's 20 years later, and Trot Jr. is now going to the Super Bowl with the Eagles.
Yeah, that definitely is really cool. Like, I mean, the defense as a whole had to be one of the most flawless games that they've played. I mean, whatever, if you talk to a Commanders fan, they think that, like, there was like that ML football guy who put together a thread of 10 plays that the Eagles got away with penalties. You can do the same thing, flip side onto the Commanders, and say that they missed 10 penalties. They called 9-5, but we probably could have picked out 10 more plays where penalties should have been called or situations could have been different. But at the end of the day, if you have to, and I think I've said this a couple times this season, especially in Eagles games that were close or in Eagles games where we lost, if you have to look back at the referees, you have a bigger issue, and you probably missed a lot more other plays or other situational circumstances within your control that could have changed the outcome of the game just as much as the referees. So it frustrates me when people go that way, because I try not to go that way with the Eagles, but I also like to think of it as the score was 55-23. You literally have to pick out 10 plays they missed on and whiffed on the refs for you guys to even have a chance to score anywhere close to the points that we were scoring. So, I mean, it is what it is. It was a great game. Like you said, I agree with you. I think it was probably the best game that they played as a team all year. And I hope that they roll that into next year or next week, 2 weeks from now on February 9th in the Super Bowl. Because you have to be damn near perfect, because there's going to be some plays that Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are going to get things to go their way. And you need to be damn near perfect. So when the refs have their way, you still have the upper hand somewhere along the way where you were making the play, you made the play, you got the points, and you were able to make the difference over the referees.
Brett Eclipse says Kellen Moore has rightfully earned a lot of shit over the season, but he coached excellently on Sunday. Might have coached his way and just staying in New Orleans once the Super Bowl is over, which is pretty crazy because when we had the Super Bowl in Arizona, Jonathan Gannon stayed there. I mean, we weren't mad at that. I don't know how many people would be mad at Kellen Moore. The only thing is Jalen going into another offense, which Bobby Slowick, that's his name, right? He got fired by the Texans. Maybe he would be an option. I think the Texans kind of changed up the type of offense that he liked to run, and I think that his offense would kind of fit with what the Eagles like to do, which is running the football. So he would be an intriguing option. But the one thing I like that Kellen did, they did that jet sweep with Dallas Goedert. And I did not expect it, and they did it a couple of times, and it was great. Like, again, Dallas Goedert is really good in the playoffs. The one thing that worried me on the defensive side of the football was Zach Ertz had a big game, and we're about to go up against Travis Kelce, who somehow, some way, at the age of 35, and is not that fast, is always open. Always open. So that kind of worries me about who's going to cover Travis Kelce, because Ertz had a really, really good game.
Yeah, I was just kind of looking at who gave up the plays to Zach Ertz based on PFF, and it was Reed Blankenship, 3 for 3 for 36.
Blankenship had a bad game. I don't care what anybody says. He's not a starting safety.
Yeah, no, Blankenship had a bad game. And then the other one was Zach Bond, 3 for 5 for 20 yards. So those two were the ones that gave up the bulk of it. But Zach Bond gave yards after the catch, only gave up 5. So he gave up 15 yards at the point of catch, but only gave up 5 yards after the catch on 3 receptions.
Like on Terry McLaurin's touchdown, I know Slay kind of got beat on it, but Blankenship came down and kind of froze like a deer in the headlights and let McLaurin run right by him.
I was mad at that. I don't think enough people were talking about that play for Reed Blankenship, because when he's not coming down, and we've said this over and over again, when he's not a heat-seeking missile and has you in his crosshairs, he's just not a good tackler. He's just not. He doesn't have the fundamentals and the raw, really strong tackling ability like we see from a large chunk of the rest of this defense, if we're being honest. I don't mind Reed Blankenship. I like Reed Blankenship, but like you said, I think that we could do better and get a better start in safety. But the Eagles, just like Kenneth Gainwell, just like Boston Scott, just like some of those guys in the past, love Reed Blankenship. And Reed Blankenship, he is under contract for this year because he got that. They snuck that extension in during last year or during the offseason last year. So they do have him under contract for one more year, so they don't have to worry about answering that question about Reed Blankenship. But I do think, put him in a phone booth, he's not making the play ever. He needs to have a running head start, and you need to be a very not agile, not good change of direction guy, because then he's going to take you out. But yeah, I agree. I thought there wasn't enough discussion about that by Reed Blankenship. That was atrocious.
Yeah.
Kellen needs to add some wrinkles to the quick game. Hurts needs to get rid of the ball fast. Yeah, I think that's on, because we saw through the first 2 weeks of the playoffs, that took way too long for the plays to come together. And Jalen Hurts wasn't able to make the play fast enough. But at times, Jalen Hurts, yes, he holds onto the ball too long, and yes, he is at fault. But in the first 2 weeks, Kellen Moore's game plan did not work and did not gel.
I actually have a question.
This one was better, though.
I have a question for you about Hurts. Did you see what he said after in his press conference? He said they let the straight jacket off of him. What did you think of that comment?
I was intrigued. I was intrigued because what were they holding you back from leading up to this week? Was it in reference to, since the concussion protocol, they haven't let me be myself? Or was he referencing?
I think it was more to the passing game.
And that's what I'm wondering too, because we did see Kellen Moore get away from that AJ Brown play, that on 4th down. We hadn't seen plays like that with AJ Brown in weeks. And I get there was some injuries, but we hadn't, and he tried the shot to AJ Brown a week or two ago, and AJ Brown just couldn't get to it. But it just feels like those big shots, those things. Jalen Hurts' bread and butter is his long game. When everyone's playing up because they're worried about Jalen Hurts' legs and Saquon Barkley, and he's able to pick someone apart, one-on-one, man-to-man, that's Jalen Hurts' bread and butter. That's what makes him such a good passing quarterback, because one-on-one with the guys that he knows he can trust and the weapons that he has, he is lethal. And we know that. He is such an incredible deep throwing quarterback for that reason. And I wonder if it's that, because even prior to the concussion protocol, it felt like Kellen Moore had kind of taken those types of plays out of the offense. Like, you weren't seeing them as much, or he was lobbing them up there for AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, putting them where he knew only they could get them.
Was Kellen Moore taking it out, or somebody telling Kellen Moore to take it out? Like, Brett Eclipse says, I think the straitjacket comment had to do with deep shots. Coaching probably been telling him to avoid those turnovers and just win via Saquon and defense, which is what I think they told him in the bye week. Like, don't turn the football over. We're going to win because of our defense. And that's why he was gun shy, like in the Carolina game. And there have been times that he has been gun shy throwing the football, because he's probably especially last year, he turned the ball over 20 times, and this year it's only been 5. So he deserves credit for not turning the football over. But I also think, like, there's one game left. You're trying to win a championship, and I get it, turnovers are bad, but let him go out there and let him throw the football, sling it around the yard if he needs to. Like, the Chiefs' run defense, I think, is okay. But, I mean, obviously our offensive line is really good as long as Dickerson and Jurgens are good to go. And obviously Saquon is Saquon. So if you can find that balance and keep Spags second guessing, I think that the Eagles have a really good shot to be able to put some points on the board.
And I think I saw his stats against the blitz against the Washington Commanders, and it was really good. I can't remember now. I don't know. I think it was 10 for 16 for 100 and something yards. And I think they even attributed his one passing touchdown on the blitz too. He did really good against the blitz. So hopefully that continues, because, Spags is going to bring the pressure. He's going to bring he does by nature bring a lot of pressure. But then with Jalen Hurts, and knowing, like, last time they met Jalen Hurts, they didn't necessarily always have an answer to the blitz. And in recent memory, they haven't always had an answer to the blitz. Got a lot better this year. That that Spags is going to bring the pressure and bring the house. Tech says coaching also told him to throw the ball away instead of taking sacks. You should anyways. I don't think. Obviously,
there are a couple times that it might be on, because I noticed that yesterday one of the plays that he slid, or he slid. They ran an RPO, and the offensive lineman got downfield, and we know that that happens a lot. If he throws the football, they can throw the flag. So I'm not saying it's all the time, but there are on a few occasions where he just takes the sack or slides early so that they don't get that penalty. A 2 or 3 yard loss is better than a 5 yard loss, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that a big thing here, Brett Eclipse, is there was a shot early in the game where Brady pointed out on the broadcast AJ was one-on-one and said he should have just gone for it. The 4th and 5th seemed like a similar situation where he took the shot. To beat the Chiefs next week, you have to let Jalen Hurts unleash. You have to be able to throw the ball. I get it. We can run. We can win with the run game. I agree. But you also have to keep the defense on their heels, and because, Spags is going to bring a lot of pressure. He'll fill the box. If all that he thinks you're going to do is run, he'll fill that box. So you have to take full advantage of keeping Spags honest, keeping this defense honest, and letting Jalen Hurts throw that football. Because we know in the deep game, when push comes to shove, he can do it. And it's going to be important to have blitz beaters. You have to absolutely have that guy. You have to have that built into the plan. Kellen Moore has to have it built in that there is a guy that is always should be open and he can look to, that's out in the flat screen. Maybe going right in front of him in a curl type of situation. There's got to be some sort of blitz beater that just gets some sort of yardage, because that Spags is going to bring it on probably more than 50% of offensive plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. So it'll be interesting to see.
Desert Fox says the 4th down go ball to AJ. He completed the pass, but it was kind of risky. It was risky, but it's 4th down, and they did it earlier in the year against the Giants. Now I know the Giants stink, but they scored a touchdown on it. That's like Jalen is a really good at throwing that deep ball. So I had no issues with it. I'm glad they went for it. I wanted the Eagles. I wanted Sirianni to be a little bit more aggressive. Now, not go balls to the wall aggressive, but if you think you need to go for 2, go for it on 4th down instead of kicking the field goal, whatever it was, do it. And he did it. And they were able to break the spirit of Washington. Probably in that the second or third quarter.
Renee Johnson says, "Go Birds," with a nice greenish colored heart. Welcome aboard, Renee. Yeah, I mean, overall, I guess let's dive into some final thoughts. I mean, you had this as a much lower scoring game. I had it as a higher scoring game, but not to the tune of 55 points. I think I had it 31-27.
The Eagles beat the over-under by themselves. It was 47.5, and they scored 55.
Yeah, like you could tell that there's a lot of people that expected, the defenses to be better in this game. It's going to be interesting. I notice a lot of people talking about the Washington Commanders, and they're still young. They got 9 draft picks this year. They have $90 million in cap space. It is important to note, if you look at their free agents, like there is a large handful of starting defensive players who are free agents. Zach Ertz is a free agent.
Well, they did a lot of one-year deals.
Exactly. All the backup wide receivers, like Terry McLaurin, I think is the only wide receiver under contract next season. But that just goes to show the $90 million is not just going to be like, oh, you can make some 2 big splash plays and in free agency and get huge impact players. No, you're losing one of your top players in Zach Ertz. You're losing Jeremy Chin. You're losing Bobby Wagner. You're losing Lou.
Well, they'll probably bring some of them guys back.
Of course they're going to bring some of those guys back. But the point is, the talk is as if this $90 million can be used to make big moves. But
it depends on how they structure the contracts.
Yeah, because if they, when you look at the Cowboys, Dak Prescott alone has a $90 million cap hit next year. So
Speaking
you could structure that.
How about Brian Schottenheimer on a Friday afternoon dump being hired as the head coach of the Cowboys? Brian Schottenheimer.
And you just hear it in the way that Jerry Jones is talking about it and defending it. Like, I can't remember the comment that he made. He said, I think it was today yesterday, he made the comment, you can't say I'm not afraid of taking a risk. There's a difference between taking a risk and just a complete bonehead decision. When he first announced it, the way he announced it was ridiculous. It was, you can no longer call this guy an assistant because he's a head coach, a lifetime assistant coach, because now he's a head coach. He was a lifetime assistant coach for damn good reasons. He would have been way better off to go Kellen Moore. I mean, great. You know what? I'm all for Brian Schottenheimer being in our division and being a coach, and Brian Daboll coming back and bringing back that crappy, the people who've made the worst decisions for the Giants organization back, because now it can just be the Commanders versus the Eagles, mano a mano, and for the next few years in the NFC East. Fine with me.
Quentin, are you an Eagles fan? I want to ask. Saquon's not a system running back. I know you're joking.
He's got the eyeballs going. Text for anyone on the listening podcast style after seeing what Shipley did yesterday is Saquon a system RB. Oh, he doesn't have the eyeballs. He has the skull faces. I thought they were the side eyes, but they're the skull face.
It was funny because somebody had mentioned when we first came on.
Yes, it was.
Where is Tech Quentin not here because there's nothing to be negative about. And he found a way. And
it looks like San Diego 2019 left and Tech joined, and now the negativity is abroad. So we love both San Diego 2019 and Tech Quinn.
Are they the same person? We haven't seen them in the same room. No, I'm kidding.
Never see them in the same comment section here. Yeah, so, there's San Diego 2019. And here
we go.
Brett Eclipse says the Cowboys are done. The East is between Philly and Washington for the foreseeable future. Agreed. What's the Kelly Green Hour schedule looking like for the next 2 weeks? We are going to give LJ's voice a rest, and we'll be back on Friday, the 7th of February for a preview of the Super Bowl. So
unless
that is
they're like
schedule.
Over the next week and a half, some big news comes out, which we don't anticipate. But like if something crazy that could affect the game happens, we could do like a quick quick episode, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Otherwise, Kellen Moore, the New Orleans Saints are flying to Philadelphia tonight. I think they're interviewing Kellen Moore tomorrow. And then you would expect there's going to be more interviews upon his
Desert
visit
Fox,
to...
we will talk about a lot of the Chiefs. And this is different than the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Like 2 years ago, it was kind of we get to face Andy Reid, the Kelsey Bowl. This ain't friendly. This is all about revenge.
100%.
Look, I love Andy Reid, but no, we got to take that from you. Travis Kelsey and that whole Taylor Swift thing is cool. We're taking the Super Bowl from you. I think because it was actually asked on the New Heights show. I don't know, it was a while back, but like if the Chiefs and Eagles faced in the Super Bowl, who would Jason Kelsey root for? And he said he's going to root for. He wants his brother to do well, but he's going to root for the Eagles. Which
definitely,
he's an Eagle at heart. It's going to be interesting. Will Taylor Swift be there? She's an Eagles fan, but dating Travis Kelsey, who she supported.
Interesting.
Just saying.
A rumor just came across. Former Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy could land the Saints job. However, talks with the Saints, quote, have not gone well, and New Orleans is, quote, not enamored with McCarthy. First of all, no one should be enamored with Mike McCarthy.
Nobody should be enamored with the Saints job, though. If you take the Saints job, you're getting fired within 2 years, and you need 5 years.
Exactly. That's what I said. That's what I said when they first reported the Kellen Moore's interview. And tomorrow I said, Kellen Moore has a good thing going with the Eagles. He will have a chance at better job of it openings next offseason if he can prove himself for 2 straight years. You are on your way. If you're hired for the Saints job this year, you're on your way to getting fired within 2 seasons because they are at this point right now, they are negative $50 million in cap for next year. And then the next year, I think they have $90 million in cap, but it still ranks the 29th in all of the NFL. Like, what does it? You don't have a quarterback. You have Derek Carr under contract for a terrible contract for the next 2 or 3 seasons. It is a job where someone is going to go to die. And for Kellen Moore, like, you've had this opportunity before. You've never gotten any of these jobs. It feels like you would really be doing yourself a disservice and settling for this Saints job.
He should, and I get it. He wants to be a head coach. He should come back, be an offensive coordinator here 1 more year, and next year there should be better options. Well,
exactly, for sure.
Better options is taking it lightly, I guess, only because like if you're going into a job that needs a new head coach, that means they're not very good. But yeah, we'll see what happens. A couple of things. Desert Fox says they better not butter up on the field like last time. I agree with you. This is all about revenge. We did it 2 years ago. Go out there and take this seriously. Also, wait, before we go, do you think this could be Lane Johnson's last game? The way he was talking after the game yesterday made it feel like
if they went, and I saw Tony Pauline, who I generally take with a very significant grain of salt, did mention that there's discussions of signing Mekhi Becton their big contract with the idea of if Lane Johnson retires at the end of this year, they got their answer. If he doesn't retire, they still got they stick him in at right guard. And when Lane Johnson retires in 2 years, kick him out. So I would not, if we win the Super Bowl, I would not be one bit surprised if Lane Johnson retires. Would not be one.
That's crazy because we would have lost the four pillars in 2 years with Kelsey.
It's huge. It is huge that the change that we have gone through under the Nick Sirianni regime, like the constant change of coordinators, all these big guys retiring because they've reached their end. Like Brandon Graham could be done. Lane Johnson could be done. Darius Slay said he likely played his last game in Philadelphia yesterday. Like there's a lot of change going on. I mean, the changing of the guard is good because you're not changing to do a rebuild. The changing of the guard is a fairly positive one. We have Kenyon Mitchell. We have Cooper DeJean. We don't really have an answer at edge, but we know that that's somewhat, well, I mean, not technically Smith's been on fire. Smith has been absolutely amazing. So we have Nolan Smith, and then of course they're going to probably look for maybe moving on from Huff and trying to dip into the free agent market again. And then of course they're probably going to draft again. We have answers like Becton. You can kick Becton out. You know Becton wants to be in Philadelphia. You know he loves Philadelphia. He's gotten so emotional over the past few weeks, moving through the playoffs and getting to be in the playoffs and everything. So it's all positive change, but it is crazy, significant change that impacts a team. So you
running through some of these final comments before we finish off. Philly getting a win over a win would certify us as the third best franchise in the league since the turn of the century, below only New England, Kansas City. Yeah, I mean, this would be our fourth Super Bowl, second Super Bowl win, been the 8 conference championship games. I mean, and obviously New England did what they did, and Kansas City doing what they're doing. Yeah, I actually agree with them. Desert Fox says, I just want to see the Eagles bully them with the run game. That's what they've been doing all year, so it wouldn't surprise me. San Diego says, I hate the 2 weeks before Super Bowl, the national media is nauseating with a bunch of useless babble. Time to tune out and celebrate amongst ourselves, guys. Yeah, it's going to be a long 2 weeks.
Me and LJ frequently celebrate amongst ourselves, even in between weeks in general, because we cannot stand the national media. So Desert Fox says, I hate that Nick Wright. And San Diego 2019 says, I think Nick Wright hates Nick Wright.
Yeah, he's an idiot. I can't stand him. Like,
Brett
says he still needed an edge to replace the likely loss of Sweat, but Nolan's progression makes it a much less stressful replacement to now. Well, we do need an edge because Bryce Huff's probably getting traded. Brandon Graham's going to retire. Josh Sweat's going to be gone. That's 3 right there. I mean, Milton Williams might be gone too, which kind of sucks. But
I would like to keep Milton Williams. Like if people were to tell me pick Milton Williams or Josh Sweat, I would pick Milton Williams.
Milton Williams is going to get paid.
He's definitely going to get paid. I mean, is he going to look as good without Jalen Carter on the same line as him and Jordan Davis on the same line as him? That'll be interesting story to watch and see. Desert Foxes keep on, of course, absolutely 100%.
I think the injury to Nakobe Dean
it forces them, I think.
Yeah, it kind of forces them to bring him back. It'll be interesting to see what that contract looks like.
Yep. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl bound. Like we said, we're likely not coming back on until Friday, February 7th with our preview episode, unless something massive comes up like Jalen Hurts like tears his ACL or something in a freak accident of some sort.
How would you say that?
Well, listen, man, we have to be honest about what will draw us back to the streaming and podcasting, and that's
Quentin, I want to see more winning. I don't care if it's running. I don't care if it's passing. Like, I don't know if it's Jalen or Sirianni said in their press conference yesterday. Who cares if we have 1 passing yard and 300 rushing yards, or we have 300 passing yards and 1 rushing yard? Just win.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't care if we see more passing, honestly. See ya, fellas. San Diego 2019. Take care, everyone. See you on February 7th. But yeah, great, huge game. Philadelphia Eagles crushed the Washington Commanders 55-23. They are Super Bowl bound to face Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, Andy Reid, and the Kansas City Chiefs in New Orleans. And the referees. So, yeah, I mean, we could continue on with that list. I think it's unfair. It grows every year. But we will be back on February 7th. Make sure you're following LJ at LJHurl54, myself at Connor10. I'll be all over the Kelly Green Hour Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. So if you are missing us from now until February 7th, make sure you're already following us and interacting with us on the X Twitter. I can't get over calling it Twitter. It's Twitter. Sorry, Elon. But go and interact with us over at Twitter. Of course, the Eagles Pinpool Network at Eagles Pinpool everywhere where you listen to podcasts, download your podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, everything. So for now, what a game. What a season. We are there. We are in the Super Bowl. We're going to New Orleans, baby. It is a revenge game, revenge for the ages. And we will see you all on Friday, February 7th, to get you ready for that Super Bowl matchup.